Hey Zoo, Gordy back again with another Tuesday night message for you all. Thanks again for opening this up, clicking on this, taking some time to watch this. Hopefully it teaches you something tonight. But today we are starting a brand new series called Summer Hits because we wanted to do something summery for you guys. Okay, hopefully you are on summer vacation by now. I know it kind of feels like that you've been on some form of summer vacation since March when all this quarantine stuff began and you were told that you couldn't go to school anymore. But hopefully, officially, you were done with your homework, you've got your last assignments in, and you are good to go on summer vacation. Maybe you are already on vacation with your family or traveling around or doing whatever it is. But we are doing a series called Summer Hits to go through what are called the parables of Jesus, okay? And maybe if you've gone to church for a while, you're familiar with what a parable is, but if not, that's okay. A parable is simply a short story that oftentimes Jesus would use during his teachings to help get his lesson or his point across to his audience, okay? He would use these short stories, not necessarily true, but told in a way that would help reinforce his idea, his moral, his spiritual lesson that he was trying to teach his audience at that time. Oftentimes, in my sermons, I use stories or examples to help you as the audience not only stay entertained and to stay engaged, but also to help see practically the point that I'm trying to make, okay? And oftentimes, Jesus would do the very thing with his audience to help them understand his message better. So during this series, Summer Hits, we're going to go look through some of the hits of Jesus's parables and to help you understand them better. And I want you to know that even if you've gone to church for a long time and you maybe have heard these parables taught on before, use this as a time to be reminded of things. Use this as a time to have ideas reinforced in your brain and to not come into it with this idea of, oh, I've heard this parable before, I already know what it means, but to have the perspective of how God, how can you teach me something new, or how can you remind me of something that I've forgotten, or how can you just teach me this parable in a way that I've never looked at it before. Have that mindset when you listen, when you hear them, and I hope you learn something from this series. So, with that being said, open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 13. Matthew chapter 13, and we will be in verse 44 is where we will start. So Matthew is the first book of your New Testament, so open up to there. And verse 44 is where we will start in chapter 13. Okay, and we will start with the first parable of this series. It's actually three different parables, all combined into one that kind of mean the same thing. But the first one is called the parable of the hidden treasure, and that is where we will be focusing on tonight. Okay, so the parable of the hidden treasure says this. It says, "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and he buys that field." Parable number one. Parable number two says, "Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of fine pearls, who on finding one pearl of great value went and sold all that he had and bought it." It's parable number two. Parable number three. "Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was thrown into the sea and gathered fish of every kind. When it was full, men drew it ashore and sat down and sorted the good into containers, but threw away the bad. So it will be at the end of the age, the angels will come and separate the evil from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace. And in that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And then he concludes all three of these parables with this in verse 51. He says, "Have you understood all these things?" They said to him, "Yes." And he said to them, "Therefore every scribe who has been trained for the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who brings out his treasure, what is new and what is old." So we see three parables, all different examples, but kind of make the same point. You'll notice a phrase that comes into play in every single one of these parables. It says, "the kingdom of heaven." And the parables that he's telling here are real short. And every single one is told with the same meaning to point towards the kingdom of heaven, to describe the kingdom of heaven. The one about the hidden treasure says, "The kingdom of heaven is like treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and he buys that field." And I love that Jesus tells a parable that every single person can understand. Every single one of us understands what it means to find treasure. Okay, automatically when you hear the word treasure, what happens in your human brain is you get excited, you get interested. Okay, treasure means there's value. Treasure means that you're probably finding something that other people haven't found yet. That you are finding something that you can keep to yourself, that is going to bring you value, that is going to bring you riches, that is going to bring you worth. And our human brains, when we think of treasure, and you probably think of a lot of things, but there's a couple that come to my brain. I think of the show. There's a show on TV called Pawn Stars, okay, and it's about pawn shops where people bring in things that they found in their attic, their basement, wherever it is, okay. They bring in this junk that they're trying to pawn off, that they're trying to sell, trying to get something of value for, and the people that work at the store, they understand these things and they'll look at that item and oftentimes it is worthless and not worth a whole lot. But sometimes something rare will come in where this person will be like, I found this in my grandma's attic, all right, and it's all dusty and gross. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's worth. And these pawn stores, they'll look at it and they'll go, wow, what you have here is actually worth so much money. Maybe it's a painting. Maybe it's if you're like me and you have way too many baseball cards for your own good, okay, maybe it's a really old, valuable baseball card, which unfortunately I don't own any of those. Okay, but whatever it is, all right, you have found something of great value and of great worth. Okay, if you think of the movie National Treasure or the show Outer Banks, okay, which if you haven't watched it, don't watch it, not worth it. Okay, we'll use National Treasure as a better example here because much better film. Okay, in the movie National Treasure, it's all revolving around a treasure hunt. Okay, the reason that it's so exciting to watch is because you have all these people trying to find the same treasure, okay? And there's different sides. In National Treasure, you're rooting for the good guys, okay? I don't know his name in the show, but Nicolas Cage and his little group, okay? Versus the other people, the bad guys, who always chase them and shoot at them and all that stuff, okay? And as an audience, we enjoy watching it because it's a treasure hunt, all right? We're on the edge of our seats. We're trying to see what happens, and it's exciting, because they know that there's something of value and they want to be the first to find it and they want to be the ones that have it for themselves. And we as people, we understand this idea. And so in this parable, when he starts talking about a treasure hidden in a field, all of a sudden as people, we go, yeah, I understand what that means. I get it. And when it talks about a merchant in search of fine pearls and then finding one that has a great value, we go, oh, I understand that. I know what great value means. And Jesus is telling a parable to get a point across to us as people. And we go, well, what is the treasure he's talking about? Is it a treasure hidden in a field? Is it a treasure of a merchant finding a pearl? Is it fishing for fish and getting good fish and getting bad fish and sorting out the good from the bad? What is it? What is this treasure that Jesus is talking about? And it's very obvious. It's the kingdom of heaven. It is our eternity. It is what the cross has promised us. All right, when Jesus died on the cross, he forgave us of our sins. When he rose from the dead, he says, you now have power over evil. You now have power over sin. There's something promised to you that if you follow me and you accept the work of the cross, you now have a kingdom of heaven waiting for you. That this life is not all that there is. There's something greater. There's something more valuable. There's something amazing waiting for you. But beyond that, I think there's another meaning for what that treasure is. Beyond the kingdom of heaven, beyond the obvious part of the story, is the treasure is us. The treasure is you and me. The treasure is every single person. You think about it, all of us on this earth were what God sacrificed his son for. He sent his son and he said, I am willing for him to die on the cross so I can have you. So I can have my people, my creation back. In the story, it says this man that finds this treasure in the field, as he goes and he sells everything he has to buy that field. He probably looks crazy, all right? It's just a boring, plain field that probably to the normal eye, nothing spectacular about it. And he's the only one that knows that what lies underneath it, what's buried there. And so when he goes and he sells everything he has to buy this field, people probably looked at him like he was ridiculous, going, that is the worst business move ever. You're making a terrible decision. Little did they know what laid underneath the surface of that field. Little did they know the treasure that was there. In the same way, Jesus looks at us, or God looks at us and goes, that's my creation. I love them. I want them back. And so he's willing to sacrifice his son to get his treasure, to get his creation back to him. So not only is this describing the kingdom of heaven and what waits for us, but it's also describing, in a way, what God was willing to pay for us. He viewed us as a treasure. And so what that tells us about our worth is that God is willing. He sees us as that treasure. He sees us as something buried in a plain, boring field, and goes, that I'm willing to buy that. I'm willing to give it all to get it back to me. And I think the mistake we make, though, a lot of times is as people is it's really easy to fall into routine and to get used to things that are a benefit to us. I think one of the biggest things that quarantine has done for me is it's taught me not to take certain things for granted. Like I before this year, took all kinds of stuff for granted. Took the ability to go to a restaurant and eat out for granted. I took sports on TV for granted. I took the ability to do my job the normal way that I thought was normal. I took that for granted. And it's not until that stuff is taken away from me that I realized how lucky I was to have it in the first place. I think for a lot of us, we go through life, we go through the daily motions, and everything that is normal or everything that we're used to doing, we don't think twice about it, because we go, yeah, it's part of my life. It's what I'm used to. We don't see the value in it. And a lot of times, until something is taken away from us, do we realize the value that was in it in the first place. It's like if you live in a really, really beautiful place. Let's say you live in Hawaii, okay? I think it's easy to or even San Diego is a pretty beautiful place for most people, okay, who don't have the beach right next to their house, okay, who can't just drive and easily experience it. For some people, like me, I know that I take going to the beach for granted, and I take the beautiful place that I live in with the great 75-degree weather all the time, and I get used to it. I go, this, yeah, big deal, whatever. I don't think about it when I walk outside. I don't take a look around and go, wow, how lucky am I to live in this place. But for somebody that, let's say, lives somewhere way worse, they come and they go, this is amazing. You know, people vacation to San Diego, and we live here, and we take it for granted, and we go, yeah, whatever. It's home, big deal. It's not until somebody that's not used to it comes in and goes, do you see how lucky you are? Do you see how amazing it is to have this? I remember going on some missions trips when I was in high school, and we would play with these kids who are in orphanages, and the thing that would stand out the most to me was we would pull out our phones and we would take a picture of them, and the kids would freak out over the fact that they could see a picture of themselves. And to us, we go, what do you mean? Like, I can take hundreds of pictures of myself in seconds. All right, I just hold down the phone on my iPhone, and it just takes hundreds of pictures of me. Okay, I can take as many selfies as I want of myself. All right, I can post them all on Instagram. I can do whatever I want. I can take videos of myself. All right, I can do all of that stuff. But the kids in these places that we went and visited, they had never experienced it. Their only reflection of themselves was dirty mirrors or seen it in water, or they couldn't take a clear, beautiful picture of themselves. And so they would freak out when they were able to see what they actually looked like. You know, something that had never struck me before. It's going, how lucky I am to be able to take just a simple picture of myself. And as Christians, I think a lot of times we fall into this routine. We don't think about how lucky we are to have a God who goes, you have the kingdom of heaven waiting for you. You have a God that loves you so much he made this sacrifice for you. You should be willing to trade everything to receive that. You should be willing to weigh it and go, what is worth more? What has more value? You sticking to the things of the world, to the things that you want to continue sticking to, or trading it all for the kingdom of heaven, for the love of God, for what he has waiting for you. And I love how this ends. It says, have you understood all those things? And he said to them, therefore, every scribe who has been trained for the kingdom of heaven is like a master of the house who brings out his treasure, what is new and what is old. We have to make the decision. We have to go through our life and go, what is old that I need to get rid of? And what is new that I need to cling on to? And the point Jesus is making in this parable is say, look at the kingdom of heaven as something of value. And I think the mistake we can make so often, I know for myself and probably as a junior hire, is a lot of times we look at Christianity and we focus too much on the things that we have to do and the things that we're forced to give up because we call ourselves a Christian. I know for myself, a lot of times I wish I could take part in certain things. I wish I could talk a certain way. I wish I could hang out with certain people. I wish I could watch certain things. But because I'm a Christian, I have chosen not to. I've chosen to live different. And it's so easy to fall into the mindset of only focusing on what we can't have, and only focusing on the things that we've been made to give up, the things that we've been made to live different than everybody else. And we only focus on the bad or the negative or what we're missing out on, and we forget to focus on the value that we've been giving, the amazing things that have been handed to us, the kingdom of heaven that awaits us. And we miss that. And we don't even realize that. And Jesus is sitting up there shaking his head going, they're not even focused on the amazing gift that's waiting for them, the amazing treasure that is given to them freely. They're focusing on the wrong stuff. And the purpose of this parable, if you get anything out of this, is simply, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on the treasure that God has given you? And are you willing to give up everything to receive it? Or are you still focused on the rules of Christianity, the things that you wish you could take part in, that because of Christianity you've chosen not to, and it's super hard for you, and you view it as a negative, and you go, if only, why is God so strict? Why is this so hard? Why can't I just live this way? Or are you focused on the amazing, amazing things waiting for you? The kingdom of heaven, and the fact that God views you as a treasure and was willing to sacrifice everything to get you back. That's the purpose of this parable. Hopefully it makes you guys think. Hopefully it encourages you. Hopefully it brings some clarity to three parables clumped together that I think a lot of times are easily skipped over. And hopefully it teaches you something about your value and your worth and what's waiting for you in the kingdom of heaven and how much God loves you. Have a great day.